Hello and welcome to the 500th edition of the Stench of Truth here on YouTube. Yes, this is the 500th video that I have done in this series. And I thought about many different things that I could do for my 500th video. But I think my record stands for itself, and anybody who's inclined can take a look. I've been doing this for 4 years, ever since late 2007. And I have evolved much like many of you have. And I've carried a lot of people with me from the very beginning, and I've picked people up along the way. My channel has over 1 million views. Or is that my profile? One has 1 million, one has 250,000. I think my channel has 250,000 views. My total video views are over 1 million. I have almost 600 videos uploaded, and I have over 6,300 subscribers. So I've come a long way. And my message has been pretty consistent. This year alone, I predicted that the end of the Libyan fiasco would be with the death of Muammar Gaddafi. And this is what has occurred. I predicted that when Obama released his supposed cartoonish full birth certificate, that was a signal for something major to happen, which did 2 weeks later with the supposed death of Osama bin Laden. I predicted that Obama would win the presidency in 2008. I outed him as a corporate and Wall Street shill as early as February of 2008, prior to his even being elected as the Democratic candidate, when the election was still up in the air. I predicted that he would be the man and he would win. I predicted prior to that, and I don't think I ever did any videos about it because, well, it was already ancient history, but I predicted George Bush Jr., George W., would become president in the year 2000, and he did. Of course, both of those elections that he was involved in were completely hoaxed up, rigged events. And I guess by the very nature of their total absurdity, the ensuing manipulation of votes in elections would be much more subtly done, and people would be more willing to accept them. So I have been very successful in pointing the way as to what is happening in this world and showing you when events are going to occur and illustrating how these things blossom. Okay? And my evolution has been from being a Ron Paul supporter in 2008 to condemning Ron Paul in this presidential race. And the reason that I do so is because the economic situation in this country is such that a very sound economic plan needs to be in place. And for all of you who continue to believe that Austrian economics is a solution, you need to look at the facts. You need to look at the facts. The facts of Austrian economics is that it's garbage. Okay? It does not rely on any kind of modeling, statistics, mathematics, or any kind of science in any fashion whatsoever. And in fact, Austrians, if you call them on it, will readily admit that they do not rely on any kind of statistics or economic modeling that are used by any other kind of economics or economic system. And this is just ludicrous because there is no way to measure whether Austrian economics work by any standard model that anybody could use. Therefore, if you run an Austrian economic system, you can merely say that it is working. And if it's not working, you can blame it on things that you can't solve, which are a lot of things that Ron Paul could never solve, and therefore he could just say that his Austrian program would be completely effective while at the same time blaming any of the faults and any of the things that did not work out on things that he cannot solve. Because being president, he cannot solve all of the things that he says he wants to do. He simply cannot do it. He can't do it. He wants to repeal Dodd-Frank. Well, Dodd-Frank is a really fucked up piece of legislation. Okay? It doesn't address nearly enough of the problem within the banking sector. And of course, it was completely hoaxed up and concocted as a supposed solution to the problem of the banks being so intertwined within the economy that if they fail, then everything falls with them. And to ask for the repeal of that and for the repeal of other pieces of legislation just illustrates that he falls into the same camp as the radical right wing, and that is that the crushing burden of regulation is the real problem in our country, which is the furthest thing from the truth. Because if we had fucking regulation in place prior to 2008 that would have prevented the fucking banks from being too big to fucking fail and causing the fucking mess that we have as the economy of today, we would not be in the fucking mess that we're in now. It's because of deregulation that we have the fucking mess that we have. And to think that somehow some magical, mystical fucking free market is going to appear overnight and solve every fucking problem is sheer fucking lunacy. And what he also has in common with the radical rightists is this idea that somehow you're going to solve the economic problems of this country by putting out of work over 200,000 fucking people. And that's a linchpin of Ron Paul's plan. Yes, add to the unemployment rolls by putting over 200,000 people out of work. Thank you, but no fucking thanks. So, yes, I applaud him for the things that he does point to as being problem areas. Yes, we need a thorough and complete auditing of the Federal Reserve. I don't say abolish the Federal Reserve. I say nationalize the motherfucker. And nationalize all the goddamn banks that their entire, every cent that they have within the fucking banks practically is money that's ours. It's either money that has been given to them by the federal government through the Treasury Department, or it's money that has been, quote-unquote, loaned to them from the Federal Reserve. Nationalize all of them and cancel all of their derivatives and make them illegal. That way you can do whatever you want with the banks. If they're filled with toxic debt, you can break them up into smaller pieces. You can declare bankruptcy. You can do all of these things. And instead, Ron Paul wants corporations to run amok. Now, he says he doesn't want corporations to run amok. He says he's not a corporatist. But when you deregulate, you guarantee that the corporations who now dominate the entire market will continue to fucking dominate the fucking market. I don't know how, what don't you understand about that? How can you not see a very simple fucking thing right in front of your fucking face? Take the goddamn regulations away. You guarantee that the fuckers who have all the money and all the fucking place right now continue to do so. You're not going to have fucking competition spring up tomorrow, motherfuckers. What are you, fucking stupid that you can't understand that? Well, apparently he is, or he thinks everybody who supports him is fucking stupid as hell. So, I don't support Ron Paul right now. I think it's great that he calls us out for being an imperialist nation. I think it's wonderful that he wants to bring the troops home and end foreign entanglements of all kinds. I think that's absolutely great. But you know what? That is not the entirety of what the president's office is about. So if elections meant anything, which they don't, whoever's going to be president next has already been selected. You don't get a fucking say. So it really doesn't matter whether you like Ron Paul or not. He's either going to be president or he's not going to be president, and it doesn't matter what you think. So you don't have anything better from the Democratic wing of the party of corporate oligarchy. You have Obama, which I outed well before he was elected, as being a Wall Street puppet and shill, a corporatist. And that's exactly what he is. And once again, he has raised more money from Wall Street than any other candidate, including Rick Perry, who at one point apparently was the front runner in Wall Street money. But now it's Obama. Now, I have to ask you a question. If Obama has done all these terrible things about regulating the banks and doing all this kind of stuff, why are the banks giving him so much motherfucking money? Huh? Why would they fund him at all if he was such a terrible thing to the banks? Oh, the crushing burden of regulation of Obama. I'll bet you if you look too, you'll find that he gets a hell of a lot of money from the insurance industry. Do you want to know why that is? Because the so-called Obamacare is nothing but a big fat giveaway to fucking insurance companies. When it goes into full effect, you have to buy a product from a private fucking company that's a piece of fucking shit that doesn't cover jack squat, and you have to pay way too much money for. So the government is forcing you to bail out your own self, the private insurance industry. That's why I've been calling for single-payer health care in this country for years. Because it's the only solution that will solve the problems of the healthcare system in this country. It's the only one. Nothing else will do it. Obamacare is a joke. It's a complete and utter joke. And the Democrats in Congress know better. Nancy Pelosi was the former Speaker of the House, and for 2 years I derided her and all of her colleagues for doing absolutely nothing to address major issues. They presided for some of the years whenever the income inequality in this country went through the roof, where you have the richest rich owning just about everything in the entire motherfucking country while everybody else is poor. They sat on the throne, so to speak, while the middle class was gutted and destroyed with free trade agreements. And they supported those free trade agreements even though they guaranteed the outsourcing of more and more jobs. So they're no better. It's always a lose-lose in any election. That's it. That's the only thing there is anymore. There is no magical candidate that's going to come and save the day. And all the people who support Ron Paul are looking for a savior. And I'll say it again, and I'll say it again and again, because that's exactly what you are looking for. And then you fall back to your secondary position where you think, well, sure, he has some problems, but he's, quote unquote, better than all the others. Well, I guess that depends on how you measure that, isn't it? In my last video, I talked about Herman Cain. What a piece of fucking work this jackass is. And then you have Rick Perry. Can't even put together a fucking sentence. He's the male version of Michelle Bachmann, who's a fucking stupid ass. Her campaign is exploding right now. She's going to be out of the race within a couple of months. Rick Santorum is going to hang on just because that's the kind of asshole he is. And he'll be in after Bachmann is done. Because her campaign is exploding, imploding, whatever. It's going to fucking pieces. So, my prediction for the election, and I may have said this before, but I'll say it again. For the Republicans, you're going to have someone who is going to either enter the race late or is going to be popularly called through the convention to be the candidate of choice. And it's going to be someone that we have not seen yet in the race. Someone not in the race right now. And this person will be a right-wing lunatic, but in comparison to the complete clowns that you have in the race now, will positively appear to be a centrist, even though he's far right. And all of the things that he will espouse will be a toned-down version of the same lunatic crap that the people currently in the race are espousing. The way I see it, it's a no-win for everybody. That's why I'm at the position right now where I say don't bother to vote, because you are endorsing a system that doesn't do anything. If nobody voted, it would be a vote of no confidence in the entire fucking system. And that's a system of complete corporate dominance of this country. And for those of you who think that it's the government, it's the chicken or the egg, which came first, right? We had monopolies before we had government, big government, before we had regulation, before we had laws, before we had all this other kind of stuff. We had cartelism and all oligarchies and monopolies before the federal government was really that big or had any of the agencies or bureaucracies that they have today. Okay, so if you look back in history, you will find that there were rich corporations, oligarchies, and monopolies prior to the federal government being a big bloated thing that all the right want to crash and burn and destroy. Which, hey, I'm the first one to admit there's a lot of waste in government that needs to be addressed. But when you talk about destroying regulations, that's, you know, what? That just guarantees that the rich corporations who are rich now will continue to be rich and will prevent any kind of competition. You're not going to have free markets. There's no such thing. They can never exist. They can never exist in the world. And if you cannot have a free market, then you can't have free market capitalism, which is what Ron Paul and others on the right want to espouse. There is no such thing. If it cannot exist in the real world, then it is a fantasy. Therefore, you're basing your entire contention on a fantasy, a figment of your imagination. So then what do? You fall back on the idea, well, at least the markets will be freer. Well, I guess that, again, depends on how you define it. We are in a downward spiral in this country. Okay? I've not been right in everything that I've predicted over the time that I've been doing these videos. I've been wrong on many occasions, I'm sure. But I have picked up on some of the major themes behind the scenes prior to them coming out. And I hope that I have brought some enlightenment to you along the way. And I hope that I have brought to you information that maybe you had not looked at in a certain way before. I'm not a prophet. I don't claim to be anything other than just a regular guy who's doing videos on here. Just like any of thousands of other people. But I want to take a minute to thank all of you who watch my videos, whether or not you agree with me. I want to thank everybody who has supported me up to this point. And I want to thank all of the people who continue to espouse their own freedom and their own freedom to investigate and look at things for themselves, to decide for themselves. And remember, as I have always told you, I don't want anybody following me. I don't want anybody looking up to me. I don't want to be held up on a pedestal, and I do not want people to just accept what I say. Look into it for yourself. Come to your own conclusion, your own mind. It works really well if you decide to use it. So thank you all for your support, and I hope to continue doing this into the future. And hopefully it'll be a better future for everybody. We can't see it right now because we're way down in the swamp. But it's out there somewhere. And hopefully it's something that'll be better for everybody. Not just the rich. Not just the corporations. And not just Wall Street. But everybody. Thank you. Good night.